In a previous video, we learned how you can use semitones and whole tones to build interval staircases, but it isn't always clear why that would be a useful thing to do. After all, a lot of music doesn't move around just using little steps. Let's take the example of a well-known melody. So in this case, the melody is moving around quite a lot. It leaps as much as it moves by step. And yet, somehow there is an underlying sequence of whole steps and half steps, whole tones and semitones that's profoundly affecting the character of the melody as a whole. If we let a gradual picture emerge of the notes that are being used by the melody, we would see that they create this sequence. What I see here is a sequence of whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step. And the melody moves on top of that sequence. What I can now do is start the melody on a different note. How about on F instead of on C? If I have the same underlying interval sequence to work with, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, I create a collection of notes that I can work with to reproduce the same melody. So what I've discovered is that I can have two different starting and finishing pitches, C in the case of the first version of the melody, F in the case of the second version. I can have two completely different note collections to go with that framing pitch, but they can still share the same underlying interval staircase. We call that underlying interval staircase the mode. Therefore, when we're learning scales, we're learning a very powerful tool that can be used to transfer melodies very quickly and easily from one place to another. A scale has three components. It has that framing pitch that we call the tonic, a collection of notes that is held in by that framing pitch or pitch class, and as a result of that, an interval sequence called the mode type. Likewise, for the second version of the melody, F was our tonic. The collection of pitches that we worked with were these, but the same interval sequence or mode type was being used. What these different melodies shared was a mode called the Dorian. Now, as it turns out, it's rather difficult to remember these mode types based on interval sequences that run on for a long period of time. What we need to do is find some way to group the components of whole tones and semitones. That's going to be the subject of the next video. We're going to break them down into groups of 4 notes called tetrachords. And from tetrachords, we'll have a basic piece of scaffolding that we can use to build a scale called the major scale. And the major scale is what we'll use to derive all the rest of the mode types that we're interested in.